2 generations, the Rogue Squadron games pushed their respective consoles to their limits, and after Rogue Squadron 3, I couldn't wait for another one! When the next generation of consoles came around, I looked at the Wii with awe. The motion controls just seemed out of this world. Of course, this was before the insane load of shovelware sapped the fun out of that. Anyway, I just knew that the next Rogue Squadron game would be for the Wii. Unfortunately, Factor 5's American studio was forced to shut down due to financial problems in May of 2009. After that kick in the balls, it appears that a Rogue Squadron game for the Wii actually was in development. According to my research, Julian Egebrecht, Holger Schmidt, Thomas Engel, and the others started up a new company called White Harvest and had permission from Factor 5's German branch, Nintendo, and LucasArts to finish the new Rogue Squadron. However, also according to my research, some lawyer came out of nowhere and sued White Harvest out of pure paranoia, stating that history would repeat itself. That's when I lost all hope for another Rogue Squadron. To my surprise, it turns out that I was simply looking in the wrong place. I started looking at other games by Factor 5, mainly the Turrican series, but eventually I was drawn to the PS3 exclusive Lair. And because I am such a fanboy, I eventually got a PS3 just to play this game. At first, I didn't know what to think, as I couldn't find any complete walkthroughs on YouTube. Instead, I only got to see the first level and some of the bosses. So when I got this game, I had very neutral expectations. But then, I played it. Okay, that looks oddly like the startup screens for every Rogue Squadron game. The menus have the same basic format, and the mission select screen is pretty similar, I guess. Okay, but the main question is this game going to be bad, or is it going to be good? Holy crap, this is freaking Rogue Squadron, hell yes! Yes, very similar to Top Gear's relation to Lotus Turbo Challenge, this game may not be under the same name, but gameplay-wise, it's the pure essence of what made the other games so much fun. You know, I always thought that Rogue Squadron was so good in its own right, that it didn't really need the Star Wars license to begin with. Therefore, I always wondered what it'd be like without it. That's this game. So yeah, the gameplay style remains mostly intact. Most of the major changes revolve around the fact that you're on a dragon instead of in an X-Wing. For example, your dragon doesn't come equipped with secondary weapons, but you can pick up some bombs from the Mantas, which are like rebel transports mixed with Y-Wings. Don't ask. However, you can have far more powerful shots if you fire at a slower and more accurate rate. Plus, you have a large variety of physical attacks as well. Something I've seen Rogue Squadron fans beg for since Rogue Squadron 3 is more camera control. Oh man, you couldn't ask for more camera control in this one. It has even more than Rogue Squadron 3D on the PC. Oh, and if you have the camera pointed behind you, you can lock onto and attack tailgating enemies. Therefore, you won't be seeing much of this. Since the controls are shrouded in so much bullshit, mystery, I will describe them in full detail. The controls slightly differ depending on if you've updated the game or not. In the original version, you tilt the 6-axis controller in the direction you want to move. And actually, this thing steers pretty damn well. If I could use a single word to describe the controls, that would be precise. In case you are sick of braking and turning like in all the other Rogue Squadron games except for Battle for Naboo, you can whip up the controller and perform a 180-degree turn. You speed boost by flicking the controller down. The speed boost and 180 are fairly easy to pull off, but you have to be very precise with your motions. Don't flick the controller up first if you want to perform the speed boost, and vice versa. Even if you can't do these tricks, you don't have to do them. Anyway, X is to flap your dragon's wings. Square is to shoot or breathe fire. Triangle activates special attacks when available. Circle is to charge when locked onto a target. Select changes camera position. Clicking the right analog stick will display the current mission objectives, which is really helpful in some of the later levels, as there you will have to prioritize your objectives. Holding up on the right analog stick will allow you to see in first person. Holding down on the right stick will allow you to see behind you. Left and right on the right stick, just rotate the camera left and right. The left stick is just for camera rotation. However, in updated versions, you can steer the dragon with it and said camera rotation is replaced. Up on the D-pad activates Rage Mode, which slows down time, making your targets more vulnerable, while down on the D-pad activates Targeting Computer, or Rage Vision as they call it in this game. L1 and R1 lock on, and L2 and R2 break. In updated versions, you can't speed boost through motion control, as it's been moved to right on the D-pad, and the 180 can be performed by pressing left on the D-pad, though the 180 can still be performed through motion control. Now, as I said before, updated versions have analog controls as an option. Thankfully, you can still use the motion controls if you want to. And in an odd twist, I prefer the motion controls. Yeah, I said it, the motion controls, I believe, are better than the analog controls. Why? Well, you have a huge range of motion, and unlike certain Wii games, the controls best operate when making smaller movements. That really works for the motion control. With the analog stick, on the other hand, it works, but I don't feel it works quite as well. Now with all of that out of the way, like in the other Rogue Squadron games, you are given medals based on your performance. You have the standard bronze, silver, and gold, but like in Battle for Naboo, there are those really hard to get platinum medals. Speaking of the medals, I can never seem to get a gold in this one. I have silver medals on all but one of the missions, but I have never gotten a gold or platinum. And this is coming from someone who is beyond used to the gameplay style. Yeah, this game is hard. I haven't had a game challenge me quite like this in a very long time, and that is high praise. True, this isn't anywhere near the hardest game I've ever played, but the Rogue Squadron games in general are challenging in a unique way. It's a different kind of challenge where you need to use your mind as much as your reflexes. You have to know what you're doing and have to put up a good fight in order to succeed. A lot of the fun in these games actually comes from formulating a strategy and trying it out. To be fully honest, I miss that a lot. Most games are challenging in one way or the other, but hardly ever a balanced combination of the two. I miss that sense of failure, which most modern games lack entirely. Because without a sense of failure, there's no sense of accomplishment, and you won't feel any sense of accomplishment if you respawn every time you die. 3 lives, then game over. That's how it goes. To put my feelings here in a sentence, this game reminded me why I loved Rogue Squadron so much. In fact, this game seems to have a little bit from each game in the series. However, if I had to compare this game to any other game in the Rogue Squadron series, I would compare it to either one of the N64 games, which many, including myself, consider to be the best. Does all this mean the game is perfect? No, but there's no such thing as a perfect game anyway, and there never will be. My biggest complaint about this game is that sometimes a PS3 controller will pop up in the top center portion of the screen, often signaling you to move the controller in a certain way, and whenever it's moving in a horizontal manner, it's very misleading. What you have to do is tilt the controller in that direction. If you simply move the controller, it won't respond. Remember, the 6-axis controller senses tilt. Now, this is a very small complaint, but I feel it should just be mentioned. To my knowledge, there are no bonus missions to unlock. But thankfully, there are several interesting documentaries, a whole bunch of art galleries, a concert hall, leaderboards, unlockable moves, and in updated patch versions, more dragons, and... Warning, what is about to be revealed will cause all Rogue Squadron fans to go completely and entirely insane if they are not already. To any bystanders, you have been warned. Even the Flying Buick! How do you unlock it? You go to the password screen and type in Kolsch, the same code you used to unlock it in the original Nintendo 64 Rogue Squadron! Sorry about that. Now with the gameplay and controls out of the way, let's look at the story. A long time ago, a civilization often referred to as the Ancients lived in harmony, bounded by a single faith. However, that was before the volcanoes erupted and devastated the land. As a result, resources became more scarce, rival schools of orthodoxy took hold, and naturally, society split. This event is known as the Great Divide. One group, who would later be known as the Mokai, moved north with less favorable weather conditions, while the Assylians moved south into the mountains. As a result of having better resources, the Assylians became a beacon of culture and learning. The Mokai, on the other hand, are viewed as barbarians, pagans, heathen, Mokai bastards, and the list goes on. Naturally, war erupts. However, unlike most fictional wars, it's far from one-sided. In fact, the thing that makes the story so interesting is how well it relates to our world, as the themes it brings up either apply to society at one point in history, or are still relevant to this day. Julian Egebrecht explained the story was inspired by actual wars and social conflicts throughout history, the main examples being World War II and the conflict between Protestants and Catholics more than 500 years ago. It's also very interesting to see how it goes into things like corruption of the church, genocide, total war, etc. The main character, Roan, is actually very easy to attach to and even relate to. The messages this game focuses on are really powerful, and that this game can get really freaking emotional as well. Where in games like Halo, I could definitely sense the emotions the characters were feeling, this game, on the other hand, was enough to get me crying. Of course, this has that classic Rogue Squadron style humor that made the games even more enjoyable.
This is my father's dragon. I should kill you. There's time for that later.
But humor is not the major focus, far from it. For the most part, the story is dark, surprisingly down to earth, aside from dragons flying around shooting the crap out of each other. Symbolic, and even emotional, which is much more than what you'd expect from a movie these days. If I had to vote for best story in a video game, this would easily be my choice. You might be wondering why I kept a lot of it out of the review and described it so vaguely. Well, let's just say the plot twists are amazing, the character development is fantastic, and you should play the game for yourself and find out. The graphics are really good. This is one of the better looking games I've seen this gen. However, the quality can be a bit inconsistent. It can go from looking absolutely gorgeous to meh, which is unfortunate. I think Factor 5 focused much more on gameplay this time around, and to be honest, I'm glad they did. The music, on the other hand, well, all of the other Rogue Squadron games had original music composed by legend Chris Hulsbeck, but here he's the music director. The score is instead composed by John Debney, who is known very well for composing the music for Passion of the Christ and Sin City, as well as countless other films. However, could he possibly capture the gameplay as well as Hulsbeck did? The answer you're probably expecting is no. The answer is actually yes. I mean, not only does the music match what's happening in the game, but the music also plays a part in telling the story. Not only that, it's done in a style that sounds very similar to the soundtracks from the Star Wars movies. Coincidences can be pretty freaking awesome sometimes. I'm not joking about this either. Like in Star Wars, there are several theme songs that are rearranged a whole bunch of times throughout the duration of the game, and if I said that was a bad thing, I would be the biggest liar to ever exist. The way I see it, the music in this game can either be insanely epic absolutely beautiful. Something I'm sick of with soundtracks in modern games is that very few songs end up being memorable. Almost none are, and most are so generic it hurts. However, none of that applies to this game. I've been humming these songs like crazy. This game has one of the best soundtracks I have ever heard, and that's applying to movies as well, not just video games. Overall, this game is a fantastic experience, and if you like the other Rogue Squadron games, then this is a game you need to play. Again, I got a PS3 just to play this game, and I was not disappointed. If anything, the game turned out to be a lot better than I expected. It's also one of the only PS3 games you can play on your PSP. That's right, this game is remote play compatible, so you can take this game and play it on the toilet. Awesome! This game is also dirt cheap. I got my copy in new condition for only $7, I'm not joking. So if you have a PS3, then getting this game is a no-brainer. If you don't have one, it might be a good reason to get one, though I admit getting a console for one game isn't the best idea. So look at some of the other PS3 exclusives and see if there are any others you would like too. So those are the Rogue Squadron games, and what do I have to say? They're fantastic. Along with being technically impressive, they combine the arcade-style flying games and flight simulation games almost perfectly. All of these games are insanely action-packed, but at the same time a lot of effort was made to provide an incredibly immersive experience for the player. All of these games do a very good job at making you feel like you're there in the game. It's simply an experience like no other. That's all.